All right, another spark and another build. Time to tighten the bolts and spark the plan. Today, we're tackling something big, something foundational. Most trading card games are about the meta, the top decks, the counters, the seasonal rankings. But today we're talking about a game that tries to build a mythos. We're going back to the beginning, before the Rustborn were a plague, before the Great Guild Wars. To the origin point of every future corruption, Betrayal, and Duality in Tools and Titans.
We're talking about a foundational tragedy. It's a story that feels less like a product backstory and more like a myth, like an echo of Icarus flying too close to the sun, or a kingdom crumbling from within. We're exploring the most pivotal triad in the entire TNT universe. They aren't just historical titans, they are the origin story. They walked the path of mastery first, and they are the ones who faltered the hardest. We're talking about the Trinity Before the Rust.
It's a heavy topic. But before we dive deep into the fall, let's cover the fundamentals. For those just joining us at the Forge, the core of the game is deceptively simple. You might be wondering, with all this lore, how do you actually play? So how do you play Tools and Titans? Easy. Draw your cards, charge your energy, build your field. Act with your powers, clash with your titans, end your turn. 6 steps, 1 epic battle.
6 steps, that's the engine. But today's topic is about how that simple engine can be pushed to its absolute breaking point and beyond. Keep those 6 steps in mind, because today we're going to see how 3 specific titans took those simple actions and twisted them into something that would break the world.
Okay, so set the stage for us. Who exactly are the Trinity Before the Rust? What does it mean that they were architects?
The Trinity Before the Rust are Voltara, Fusio, and Lockara, 3 ancient, incredibly powerful titans. When we say architects of the Forge Accord, we mean it literally. They were the visionaries, the master builders of the first tier. Voltara designed the energy pathways that powered the first cities. She was the steady hand guaranteeing progress. Fusio was the artist, the one who engineered new materials and energy sources everyone thought were impossible. And Lockara, she built the Great Seals, the containment protocols, the very systems that kept the chaotic, entropic forces of the outer echo wells at bay. They were legends.
So they weren't just cogs in a machine. They were the machine. They were admired, revered. But the name says Before the Rust. So something went wrong, horribly wrong.
Horribly. These 3 were the first to break, the first to betray their own ideals, and the first to fall into Rustborn corruption. Their failure was so absolute that they became twisted mirror images of their former selves. They became the hateful figures we know today: Shivvolt, Fusure, and Rustara.
So they are the originators of the Rustborn entropy itself. Their fall wasn't just a personal failure, it was a systemic collapse. It's what kickstarted the whole mess.
Precisely. And that's what makes this group so unique in the game. They exist in 2 distinct forms: their original, noble Tool Titan state, and their corrupted, terrifying Rustborn counterpart. Playing them isn't just about strategy. It's about embracing that dualism between innovation and obsession, brilliance and total breakdown.
So it's not just a story about good guys turning bad. It sounds more like a story about good intentions paving the road to hell. What do they actually represent philosophically?
They represent the fragile line between mastery and madness. Each represents a virtue pushed into the territory of a fatal flaw. Take Voltara's original trade, energy distribution and surge control. Her philosophy was balance, stability, but that desire for control, when pushed too far, became a need for absolute authority. It starts with wanting to ensure stability, but it ends with believing only you can provide it. Every outside force, every variable becomes a threat to be neutralized.
Control becomes tyranny. What about Fusio, the innovator?
His trade was fusion crafting and energy binding. He was a visionary. He believed in unity, in bringing disparate things together to create something stronger, a noble goal. But he became obsessed with the breakthrough, not the consequence. He chased the what if so hard he ignored the what now. His unstable innovation burned too brightly, too fast. He simply had to see if he could do it. And in the end, that was all that mattered.
The pursuit of knowledge without wisdom, and Lockara, the guardian. Her fall seems the most tragic.
She was the trust architect. Her domain was structural sealing and binding protocols. Her entire existence was contemplating failure modes. How could this break? How could we be betrayed? She lived in a world of risk analysis. Eventually, she started seeing that risk not in systems, but in people. Her need for security, for perfect safety, curdled into paranoia. Her philosophy was once vital, but their overreach, their obsession, became a blueprint for corruption. They are the ultimate cautionary tale. This is what happens when titans go too far.
So let's get into the story. Take us to the moment it all shattered. Paint the picture of the Threefold Fracture.
It happened during a legendary event, a chain reaction of failure. First was Voltara. Imagine the surge columns of Teslarum, not as ruins but as gleaming spires of white and copper, humming with perfectly controlled energy, a city-sized monument to her genius. But then came the surge, a flicker at the Weaveheart spire. She tried to contain it, to absorb it herself, believing only she had the strength, but the power was too much. The steady hum became a shriek. The calm blue light of the spires turned into a blinding, violent violet. It broke her, twisting her from a manager into a being of pure, chaotic discharge.
So she didn't just cause a blackout. She became the storm.
She became Shivvolt. Her fall sent waves of raw, chaotic energy across the weave, which led directly to Fusio's disaster. At the Emberlace Cradle, his own prized laboratory, he saw this chaos not as a warning, but as an opportunity. He attempted his forbidden experiment, using the surge to power a reaction meant to fuse the energy fields of two separate titans. It was an act of supreme arrogance. The fusion didn't stabilize. It melted down. The cradle, once a place of brilliant creation, became a crater of permanent radioactive decay.
And Fusio with it. He became Fusure, a living meltdown. What about Lockara? Her fall sounds different. Less about raw power, more about something else.
Hers was a failure of the one thing she was meant to architect: trust. As the other two zones fell, she retreated to the 12-fold locks, her great bastions of security. But the chaos created paranoia. She received warnings, but she suspected them to be tricks. She was given aid, but she saw it as sabotage. In a final, desperate attempt to secure the locks from a threat she imagined was inside, she activated a final protocol, but it was based on a false premise. Her own action, meant to save everything, was the very thing that broke the final seal, exposing critical blueprints to the corruption storming outside.
Her paranoia became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And she became Rustara, an entity of pure paranoia whose locks no longer keep things out. They trap things in. Each betrayal opened a rust gate, and from those 3 rifts, the first wave of the Rustborn were truly born. Their homes are now just scorched, haunted, broken zones in the game.
Okay, a truly epic, tragic backstory. Let's bring this to the table. How does this massive narrative event translate into gameplay? Why do these 3 matter so much to a player building a deck today?
They matter because they introduce mechanics you won't find anywhere else. Chief among them is the concept of dual-aligned cards. These titans can literally flip to their Rustborn forms mid-game, if certain conditions are met.
Flip mid-game? Is that a mandatory thing or a choice? That seems like the most important question.
And that's the beauty of it. It's almost always a choice. The game presents you with a trigger. Maybe you took a certain amount of damage, or an opponent destroyed a key structure, and it asks you, are you desperate enough to pay this price? Are you willing to fall? You can choose to flip her card. She becomes her Rustborn self, and your entire strategy, your tools, your abilities, they all invert.
That's a massive strategic shift. So your own tools could change their function? Give me an example.
That's the next mechanic. Weave Inversion Triggers and Mirrorprint Tools. Think of a tool card called Static Seal. As Lockara, its text might read, "The attached structure cannot be targeted by opponent's act cards." A simple shield. But if you flip to Rustara, that Static Seal inverts. Its Mirrorprint text activates. Now it reads, "The attached structure's abilities cannot be activated." Your shield becomes a shackle. It allows for incredible bluffing and flexibility.
Wow. So your opponent never truly knows what your cards are capable of. But it sounds risky. You mentioned a price. There has to be a cost beyond just inverting your own cards.
There is, and it's called the Rust Concordance. This is a mechanic on certain cards that allows a deck to willingly embrace the Rustborn logic for a powerful, immediate effect. But the cost is real and tangible. It's not just discarding. It might mean placing 3 decay counters on your own Titan, permanently lowering its health. It might mean sacrificing one of your structures. It's a true Faustian bargain, right there on the card table.
It's a lot to track. But it all comes down to the turn structure. Every Titan turn, draw, charge, building act, clash, end, 6 steps, infinite ways to forge your victory.
Exactly. And the Trinity adds a 7th invisible step to every turn you take, the choice to fall. Most Titans ascend through mastery, gaining power by achieving goals. The Trinity, they have what's called flip ascension. They ascend, in a manner of speaking, through the acceptance of their failure, their duality.
All right, let's break them down one by one from a deck building perspective. If I want to build around one of these Titans, what am I getting into? Let's start with Voltara.
Pre-fall Voltara is the Surge manager. Her gameplay is all about control and tempo, surge sync, reflecting damage, delaying enemy effects. A good Voltara player makes their opponent afraid to play their best cards. You're baiting them into overcharging the field just so you can punish them for it.
Like a judo master, using the opponent's own force against them. So what happens when she flips to Shivvolt?
The strategy inverts from control to a hard resource drain. Instead of reflecting power, Shivvolt drains it, siphons it. Your opponent's tempo slows to a crawl as their energy vanishes before they can use it. The deck archetype is called Surge Reflector. You control and punish in the early game with Voltara. Then flip to Shivvolt to bleed them dry in the late game. You're no longer punishing them, you're draining their will to fight.
Okay, next up, Fusio. He was the energy harmonizer.
His whole identity is about combos, fusion casting, double trigger synergies, creating ember links between your cards. Playing Fusio feels like building a house of cards. It's beautiful, intricate, and one wrong move brings it all down. You're building a complex engine, piece by piece. The tension in the late game is immense.
And when that engine melts down into Fusure?
The engine overclocks and explodes. The strategy is literally called Fusion Overclock. You spend the game setting up these delicate energy combos with Fusio, and then you flip to Fusure to unleash a massive, game-ending burst of meltdown damage, often damaging your own field in the process. It's the ultimate glass cannon. Your opponent knows the meltdown is coming. They're just trying to disrupt your final combo piece before you can unleash it.
And finally, Lockara, the trust architect.
The Lockara player is a psychologist. Her game is about zone control and frustration, task binding, zone locks, denial protocols. You play her to build a fortress that your opponent simply cannot breach efficiently. You want to frustrate your opponent into making a mistake, into overcommitting to breaking one part of your wall.
Which is exactly the trigger you need to flip her.
Exactly. When she flips to Rustara, the fortress becomes a prison. The strategy is dual control flip. Those same locks that managed your opponent's options now deny them completely. Your opponent can't draw, can't build, can't act. It's a complete suffocating lockdown.
These decks sound incredibly powerful. The adaptability seems off the charts.
The main strength is that hybrid mechanic. It's not just about having two modes, it's about forcing your opponent to guess which mode you're preparing for. Are you building towards your Tool Titan's powerful late-game ability, or are you secretly setting up the conditions for a devastating flip? That uncertainty is a weapon in itself.
But it can't be all upside. You mentioned complexity. Where do these decks fail?
The biggest weakness is the corruption risk, and the deck-building challenge it creates. Your hand can feel split. You might draw Rustborn synergy cards when you're still in your Tool Titan form, making them dead cards for several turns. You have to think not just about this turn, but about which version of your deck you'll be playing 3 turns from now. One miscalculation, one disruption from your opponent, and your entire strategy can collapse because you're caught between 2 identities.
So in the end, it's more than just a set of cards. They are a core part of the game's living story.
They are the first story, the cautionary myth told to new Titans to remind them what happens when craft turns to obsession. They feature in major campaign arcs like Fracture of the Forge Accord and the Rustborn Concordance. In player versus environment modes, they even appear as multi-phase bosses who can flip mid-fight, forcing you to completely change your strategy on the fly. They aren't just a powerful set of cards, they're a design philosophy.
A warning, embedded in the game's code. It's a mirror. The game holds up a mirror to the player. In your own quest for victory, will you fall into the same traps they did?
Exactly. They ask the player the same questions they failed to answer. How much control is too much? When does innovation become self-destruction? Where is the line between trust and vulnerability? They represent the central message of Tools and Titans, that the very same ambition that allows you to build wonders can become the obsession that burns it all down. They are the duality, forged in the very heart of the game.
In every match of Tools and Titans, your tradecraft unfolds in 6 simple moves. Draw, charge, building, act, clash, end. Simplicity for the novice. Mastery for the Titan.